ownership is now in question to squatters that come in and take advantage of state laws. And then you go to, which forces us into a process to remove, remove the squatters and then remedy this property like this. What happened in this case is it was so, was not taken care of for so long that this one, the receiver determined that it should be torn down. So that's what happened here. The demo was completed July 26, 200 cubic yards of building debris and trash, 70 cubic yards of concrete were removed. And this was two separate properties that were adjoined to each other. And if you see the top, that's what it began as, and just some construction, deconstruction in process, and then the for sale sign. Again, this property had a long history of code violations, criminal activity, 911 calls, a real nuisance to the neighborhood. We have really improved that area there in that community by getting this situation corrected. Next slide. Now this one had a long history of code violations, and we had code enforcement issues for many years. Caught fire, and as you can see, a lot of damage was done. The city did go in and bring it down to tear it down to a level that brought a little bit of safety to the neighborhood as far as any residents that living close by, because some of it was not in the city. When it was burnt, there was a lot of the structure that wasn't really well supported. So it was in danger of toppling. And so the city went in, did as much as was necessary. And so we have that situation there. It's not our intent at this time to clean it up. There's a property owner that should be doing that. We'll be working with them to get that done. Now I'm going to close on a super positive note, somewhat light. Next slide. Does anybody recognize this stellar city public servant? So this is Chief McGaney. So he is being recognized on August 11th by the Seattle Mariners as a hometown hero. So the Chief's got a lot of involvement and a lot of things he's done in his past to earn this accolade. He's a veteran, Air Force veteran, long-time firefighter, and obviously the current chief of the Bremerton Fire Department. And he's been a coach for several years. And you see down below, that's Chief giving some instruction now. He's probably one of our next stellar athletes to leave this region and head on bigger and better things. So just wanted to share that with you. August 11th, 4:10 p.m. This one will be on ESPN, so you don't need the subscription to even be able to watch it. So I plan on tuning in on this. So that concludes my report tonight.
Well, thank you, Mayor. And now we'll go to the consent agenda with Clerk Hoover.
Thank you, President Chamberlain. For approval on the consent agenda are the following items. A, claims and check register, approval of the following checks and electronic fund transfers. 1, check number 407710 through 407973, and EFT numbers B41425 through B41588, and the grand total amount of $4,303,690.17. 2, regular payroll for pay period ending July 15th, 2024, in the amount of $1,119,871.32. 3, regular payroll payout for pay period ending July 15th, 2024, in the amount of $20,695.62. Retiree payroll for pay period ending July 31st, 2024, in the amount of $30,397.40. B, minutes of meeting July 17th, 2024. C, minutes of study session, July 24th, 2024. D, contract modification agreement number 1 with Parametrics Inc. for Francis Street Outfall Improvements Project. E, public works agreement with Axiom Division 7 for the Puget Sound Navy Museum Roof and Gutter Project. F, confirm appointment with Grace Crowley to the CDBG Project Review Committee. This concludes the reading of the consent agenda.
Thank you. This is a spiel that normally happens during public recognition, but I'm going to start saying it now so y'all know. I'm going to ask if anybody has anything to comment on specific to the consent agenda. My spiel is just an introduction to how this works. We do have a timer system. Green light means you have 3 minutes. Yellow light means you have 30 seconds left. Red light means I'm going to be mean and cut you off. So does anybody have anything that they'd like to comment on? Does any member of the public wish to comment on any of the consent agenda items only? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to council for a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
A second.
Okay, and since we have already discussed this, let's go to a vote.
Councilmember Fry,
Yes.
Coughlin,
Yes.
Rogalowski,
Yes.
Goodnow,
Yes.
Mochler,
Yes.
Younger,
Yes.
Chamberlain.
Yes,
Motion carries unanimously.
thank you. Next up is public recognition. As noted on the agenda, public recognition provides an opportunity for attendees to address the council on any issue not already on tonight's agenda. Do we have anybody who's asked for any exceptions, Clerk Hoover, for tonight? Okay. There is an exception. There is a way to have an exception to be recognized via Zoom. Nobody has made that request yet, which is you contact our clerk 24 hours in advance to ask to speak during public recognition via Zoom. Other than that, the public is welcome to attend and comment. It's also a reminder that yes, although it is the day after, it's still election season, so please refrain from any endorsements or comments about candidates or ballot measures. Does any member of the public wish to come up for public recognition today on any items not already on our agenda? And if you do, please state your name for the record. Well, let's wait till you get up to the mic so we can, have you reported for public. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Robert Driscoll. I'm the principal officer of Teamsters Local 589. I represent labor here at the city of Bremerton. I just wanted to say hi and to say, let you guys see me and introduce myself. I did bring along with me some stewards, and they'll be on the negotiating team. You'll see them, they kind of have matching shirts out there. They did want me to let you know that a lot of them born and raised here in Bremerton. They love what they do. They love the city. That being said, I just wanted to tell you we're excited to go get ready for negotiations with the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Driscoll. Does any other member of the public wish to speak for public recognition? Great, come on up.
Hello, everybody. My name is Justin Moore. I live up here off of Burwell. I'm just concerned about a couple things that I have up in Union Hill and stuff like that around town and everything like that. If I could touch on a few things. One, I want to wonder why I'm getting fined for my yard being not the best, but it's still kept up a little bit. But the city's not doing what they need to be doing. So why am I getting fined if the city's not getting fined for them not doing their jobs? Like the sidewalks aren't clean, the weeds, all that stuff's not getting clean. You can drive up down the street, it's not getting done. Why? Why aren't people doing their jobs? All right, I need to know why that's happening, and I need to know if you guys are going to do anything about it. All right. And then the next thing I want to talk about is the Salvation Army and why are people getting kicked out during the day? It's supposed to be a 24-hour shelter. Why are they not letting people back in? Because to get their stuff during the day, it's their stuff. If they need to get something during the day, they should be able to get back in and get their stuff, and not just lock it up and they can't come back and get their stuff. It's supposed to be 24 hours. It's supposed to be open. It's supposed to be open to everybody. All right. And I want to talk about the KCR vouchers. I want to talk about how it should be a limited background check. You shouldn't have to keep on paying $40 every time you want to get a place to stay, like to check it out, see if you can pass a background check. It should be unlimited. You shouldn't have to keep on doing it every time. There's no reason for you to have to keep on paying $40. People don't have $40 to spend over and over again. That collects. It's a lot. All right. People don't have the money to do that. It's expensive these days for everything. All right. And I just want to see the community grow a little bit more better together. You know what I mean? Together. Not just one or two people. Everybody needs to start working on stuff together. Take 5 minutes out of your day to go pick up some garbage on the street or something like that. If you don't want to, that's fine. But everybody can take a little bit of time out of their schedule if they have time to help out the
30
community a little bit.
seconds.
What was that?
30 seconds.
30 seconds? Sorry about that. And I feel like we need to work on these issues right now. I'm sure I'll have a lot more in next coming weeks and stuff like that. I'd love to talk to you all more about stuff. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Appreciate your time. I'm Justin. I love you all, you guys. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Is there anyone else here for public recognition? Okay. I'm now closing public recognition and moving on to general business. Clerk Cooper?
Our next item on the agenda is general business item 6A, ordinance number 5495 to amend ordinance number 5487 relating to the City of Bremerton fiscal year 2024 budget. Presenter is Director Riley.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mayor. We presented in depth on the mid-year 2 weeks ago at study session. As we communicated, majority of these items, 99% of these items have previously been approved by council. And the other items are carryover from the prior year appropriations that didn't get spent that are carried over into the current year. We are here to answer any questions from council. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Riley. Does any member of the public wish to comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, I will go to council for a motion.
Move to pass ordinance number 5495 to amend ordinance number 5487 relating to the City of Bremerton fiscal year 2024 budget and further authorize identified staffing adjustments.
Is there a second?
I second.
All right. We have a motion and a second, and we are open for discussion. Councilor Goodnow, do you have any thoughts on our mid-year budget adjustment?
So nothing really, just that this is kind of a housekeeping that we do mid-year as we started the budget. So a lot of this stuff, we identified some of it. We even knew at budget time that was coming around. So, but yeah, finance can answer any questions.
All right. Councilor Revoloski, do you have any comments or questions?
No, I think Director Riley explained everything pretty well. I don't have any additional questions.
Do any other councilors have any comments or questions related to this? Councilor Coughlin?
just to follow up from study session, thanks for the June 2024 mid-year, the monthly status update budget report. I think it's just worth highlighting that revenue is above budget and expenditures are below budget. So I think they're doing a great job there in the finance team, obviously, to make sure that our city is financially healthy. So that was great to get along with the mid-year budget adjustment update. And then to say out loud, we talked earlier in the year about discussing possible funding of Parks Department capital funds from the golf course, and we all had a great tour on that the other day and learned some information, and that discussion will be forthcoming. So not worth holding up this mid-year budget adjustment for, but glad we keep having that conversation. So thanks for the work on that. That's all.
Thank you, Councilor Coughlin. Do any other councilors have any questions or comments? Okay, seeing no further discussion, let's vote on this item.
Councilmember Coughlin,
Yes.
Robolowski,
Yes.
Goodnow,
Yes.
Mochler,
Yes.
Younger,
Yes.
Fry,
Yes.
Chamberlain.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Our next item on the agenda is item 6B, ordinance number 5496 to amend chapter 9.32 of the Bremerton Municipal Code entitled Unauthorized Camping. With us tonight is Police Chief Wolf and Captain Elton.
Good evening, Council. The department provided that packet of information addressing the data points that were requested during the council session July 24th. I know the council is well versed on this issue, and with respect to your time, I'll provide just the following statement. I cannot always measure peace and safety for you, but I know it when I see and experience it. I can tell you about the effects on our citizens' sense of well-being when we do not have peace and safety on our streets. My request of the council is to prevent what transpired on our streets due to the Ninth Circuit Court's ruling that removed our ability to enforce a law we had on the books for years. We have never experienced such chaos in our neighborhoods. The Supreme Court overturned the lower court, reaffirming our ability to regulate health, safety, and welfare of our citizens and how best to address the difficult and sensitive issues raised by camping on our streets. We do not have the resources to address and deal with full-time camps operating unmitigated in the city. We know exactly what will occur should we find ourselves without a shelter, and we should be prepared for that. We're still dealing with the impacts and aftershocks of our homeless camps due to not having shelter available and not being able to mitigate camping. In speaking to those in the neighborhoods and businesses most impacted by those ongoing issues, I feel great responsibility to make their neighborhoods as safe and as peaceful in the city as those not carrying the same burdens. Common Streets has gone to work for the city and has had a positive impact as they continue to partner with those like-minded people in our community wanting to make a change for good. They are identifying and helping those who need resources to get off the streets. And as you have seen by the info we provided you, their work is substantial. Councilperson Younger requested that we provide council with pictures of our streets impacted by camping. We did so. And if a picture is worth 1,000 words, then how many data points are there in those pictures? This is what we don't want to happen to our neighborhoods again. And by removing the shelter requirement in the ordinance, we can ensure we don't recreate that again. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Wolf. So at this time, we're going to open it up and see if any member of the public would like to comment on this. So we're going to leave the podium open for the public. Thank you. And if you could please state your name for the record.
Joan Hanton, Bremerton resident. First, I clearly heard in last week's study session the dread and concern expressed by Chief Wolf and Director Necky. I concur with them. We cannot have homeless camps in our city again. Absolutely not. I also heard Commissioner Younger's passion about not handicapping ourselves by putting things in our ordinances and our regulations that the Supreme Court has said is unnecessary. I generally agree with the Commissioner's point about not placing unnecessarily regulatory burdens on ourselves. But when it comes to issues of human rights, I do not think our current Supreme Court is the North Star. I think we decide how we treat the most vulnerable in our city. We alone are responsible for that. So I heard a lot of things discussed. What I didn't hear discussed was how this regulation informs our current work to get a permanent shelter. So here's some facts about that. Reminders. Salvation Army is closing on May 25th. Last January, you approved a plan for a permanent shelter. That work is going forward. The nonprofits, the county meet every week on that issue, and they are making progress. They have found supporters. They have found additional funding. What we do not have in that mix is the mayor of Bremerton. He has declined multiple invitations to join this work. Since you passed that, what are we calling it, policy, or that acceptance of the alternate shelter in late winter, he has not attended one weekly meeting. He has not sent anyone from his office to be a part of that effort. That is a collaborative effort. We need him at the table. While there's currently 1.2 million set aside in your budget this year for it, I haven't heard anybody talk about next year or the year after. That won't be coming from the mayor's office to you if he is not participating in the effort. So as much as I applaud Common Street and Chief Wolf, Common Street alone is not going to solve our homeless problem. We need that shelter. That needs to keep moving forward. What's going to keep it moving forward is holding ourselves accountable to the requirements of our current regulation. That sets a deadline for us. We've got until May 2025 to solve this problem. We keep people moving forward. We get a permanent shelter. That is a key piece. We cannot have BPD out there chasing tents around the city. And that is not how the mayor should spend his last 6 months in office. So the best way for us to serve our community, to meet the concerns addressed by our police and our public works, is for us to leave the shelter requirement in the older ordinance, hold ourselves accountable, get a permanent shelter in place by May 2025. Thank you.
Thank you. And before our next guest comes up, can I do a quick check to see if we can get our clock back up on the screen? I saw the lights, but the clock is really helpful if it's available. Awesome, thank you. Okay, please state your name.
Hi, my name is Alden Bradford. My comment is directed at Councilor Younger. I was listening into the study session 2 weeks ago, and you left us with a warning that next time the tenants might show up in front of our house. And to be honest, I kind of resent that because I live on Broadway. A lot of the pictures that were in the packet for today were taken directly in front of my house. So I know exactly what it's like to have tents in front of your house. They were in front of mine. And I'm not living under any illusions here. I know it's not the fanciest neighborhood. It's not the newest neighborhood. It's not the most expensive neighborhood. That's the only reason why a math teacher can afford to live here. But it is a safe neighborhood. There's children playing on the sidewalk most every day. And you may not believe this, but people actually do drive slowly on Broadway. Hardest that is to believe. The only times I've really felt unsafe in my neighborhood is when there was a police officer there escalating the situation, shouting at people to tell them to get lost. So for my part, I don't think it's a proportionate response if somebody doesn't have a place to go, if they're using the only shelter available to them, a tent that they provided themselves. I don't think it's a proportionate response to arrest them. And I don't think that we should put that response into law. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Kelly Square. I live in Port Orchard, but I work frequently in Bremerton. I am a person in long-term recovery with substance use and mental health disorder. I was a drug user and was also homeless in my childhood and my adulthood. I now have the privilege of working for Kitsap County in the PIN, Persons in Need outreach team, to work with homeless adults in Kitsap County who are looking for treatment and safe housing. I know that I was siloed into residential treatment for most of my professional career since I completed my bachelor's degree and my counseling certification. So in the past year is when I've been learning to work and collaborate with different groups, where I've gotten to work with police officers, I've gotten to work with Common Street, I've gotten to work with a lot of people who don't necessarily look at the groups of people that we serve through all the same lenses. Boy, I left here last time with tears in my eyes, listening to people that I'm here to serve being referred to as those people, and remembering that I can't get 100% assumption of what some folks mean when they say those people without sitting down to talk more. Right? I can't work with the law enforcement officers I work with in a very good cooperative relationship if I cling to all the assumptions that I made about police officers as a whole when I was breaking the law. And they were powerful. Also, I was vulnerable. Our people in need here in Kitsap County are who we're here to serve, as well as people who are doing a little bit better than they are. And I promise you there's substance use disorder with people who are housed, and you don't see what they're doing behind closed doors, the way that you can see what our unhoused people are doing on the streets because they don't have the privilege of doing that behavior behind a closed door. What I wanted to say was I hope that we can all continue to get to know each other and our story.
30 seconds.
Because when I started to learn more about things that helped me learn how to get along as a productive member of society and not continue to act on my misunderstanding, my fear, my resentments, and my, it was to learn how to be neighbors with everyone. And the people next to Salvation Army are our neighbors.
Thank you, Ms. Score. Does any other member of the public wish to comment on this item? Okay. All right, seeing none, I'll go to council for a motion.
I move to pass ordinance number 5496 to amend chapter 9.32, unauthorized camping, to amend provisions relating to the suspension of enforcement of authorized camping regulations when overnight shelter space is not available.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second, and so let's have a discussion. Councilor Frye, would you like to lead us off?
Sure. I'm public safety chair, and I have been for the last 2 years, and I sat on it before then. And I have a great deal of respect for our law enforcement, our fire, our judiciary, and I really try to take advice, of those professionals. And I was just telling the chief this week, I've worked with a lot of chiefs. I've worked with a lot of sheriffs over the years, and we've got a really good one. Chief Wolf is the finest. And so I think the reaction that was so strong in our study session was because of the process and the lack of ability to talk about it in committee and so forth. I did want the council to know that we did end up talking about it in the Public Safety Committee on the 1st. There were a lot of reassurances made more thoroughly. I think there was discussion in our committee, and it's something that the council needs to discuss more thoroughly, is the carrot and the stick approach, which, you know, whether you like it or not, is a term that is often used in law enforcement, and I use it all the time, carrot and stick. And, you know, we've got to make sure the carrot is really healthy too. And so we can't lose sight. I think we all agree that ensuring that there's adequate shelter is a goal that council wants to keep regardless of this ordinance. So whatever way we can do that, I think what it came up in public safety was, I think that was what maybe was missing, because that was crafted into the ordinance, right? And so if we let that go, all of a sudden it's gone. And I'm thinking about the testimony we heard tonight from Joan Hampton too with that. So I just wanted to share that with council. I'm supportive of this as long as we keep our eye on the carrot, keep nurturing the carrot.
Thank you. Councilor Younger.
Thank you. As some members of the public mentioned, was a little emotional last week during study session. I felt like I was grossly outnumbered. I don't know if I'll be grossly outnumbered here tonight as we discuss this ordinance. I'm hoping my fellow council members had time to reflect and come to the same decision I have. When I think about this, and I'll try to be less emotional today as I was 2 weeks ago, I really think about this as applying proper risk management for the city and for its citizens. Last summer, I think we're all in agreement, we had complete chaos in our streets. So I asked for the pictures to be put in the packet, just as a reminder in case, I don't know why we would need that reminder, but throw it in there anyways. If we don't have a clear recollection about what it was like last year. Also, all the people, all the citizens that would come down and complain about the homeless encampments. The City.Council tried to come up with some creative solutions to the camping ordinance. If you recall, we talked about certain areas, and it was talked about a map. And once the map went out to the public, it blew up. Like, why here? Why my backyard? And to me, that wasn't an effective solution, but it reflected reality. Those are public spaces, and the people would have a right to that. But I didn't want to pick winners and losers. In saying, okay, parks are off limits, but you can go here or there, or here's some parcels. And then it evolved, if I recall correctly, into property that the city owned. And eventually it evolved into property north of the Oyster Bay Public Works Facility. And the mayor had a proposal, and we're going to call that option A because that's what it was called, to bring up the sprung shelter. Many members of the public and the majority of the council did not like the sprung shelter, which was like a group. Oh, this is a giant tent, basically, right? But much nicer. One of the advantages, in my opinion, was that the city would have control over the shelter. It would be a large shelter space that seemed to be adequate in size. And it was a central location, so the providers for the houseless would have a location where they can more effectively provide their services instead of going from campsite to campsite to campsite throughout the city. At least theoretically, that was the case. Option B was to partner with our local housing authority and other charities and come up with a hybrid approach with pallet homes and other types. And option C was to allow both the city and option A and B to go on concurrent paths. So the city could apply for funding from Olympia, and the nonprofits could do so as well. And
the council did not like option C. So ultimately, the council said option B, let's trust our nonprofits. We still trust our nonprofits. We are still very hopeful that it's going to happen. We believe it's going to happen. So with that being said, what is different from last summer? The difference is we have option B, it's still in place. We're still working with our nonprofits. We still have a solution coming forth before May 25th. We also invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in an organization called Common Streets, which is their expertise in serving as the bridge between our houseless folks and the services they need. And they are the subject matter experts. They came highly recommended from another police chief, I believe in Fife, who used to be a lieutenant here. My understanding is Common Streets has been very valuable to the city in this past year in helping address, and the stats are in our packet. So we have two improvements from last summer: Common Streets and our nonprofits steadily working on a housing solution or a shelter solution. Actually, I believe multiple shelter solutions. Am I correct in that? Okay. Now's the risk management piece. I said last summer, we can't have a repeat of what happened last summer. And we got into way more details during the study session. But we can't have it. We just can't. We can't pick winners or losers. We can't say, okay, if we don't have enough shelter space, then you can go ahead and camp in this area because we're going to have all the people. Why'd you pick this area? I don't see that as an option. Again, effective risk management would say, one, if all heck breaks loose, and this is in the preamble to the ordinance, we need to have control. We need to be able to decide, the council and the mayor and the police chief and the fire chief, what is our best solution to deal with the situation, rather than tie ourselves up and say we have this ordinance on the books so you can camp anywhere you want in the city that's in the public right of way. We can't have that chaos. So I'm in support of this ordinance. Thank you.
Councilor Goodnow.
So, I have some notes here. Let's see. I just lost them all. One thing I'm leery about is spending too much time on this because we spoke about it a lot, and I'll play off of some of Councilmember Younger's points about, like, we looked at all different ways to sort of slice the pie, and one of the, whether we could you have 2 tents or 3 tents or things like that, and we just wanted to somewhat keep it as simple as possible. I do want to say that I don't think the shelter has hit capacity. So this is that true? Or yeah, and then which means we've not the provision that's in this, through the worst of the season hasn't kind of been triggered. I feel like nobody should sleep on the street. Nobody should sleep on the street. And I come at that from both sides. It's inhumane to have folks living on the street, and the average citizen doesn't want folks sleeping on the street. So just put a lot of time into this when clearly this is a symptom of a bigger problem that we need to solve. We've got community partners that are working on that. My big concern is not, and let me also say this, what's being proposed is what I don't know when, but what we operated on for a very long time. And we did not have some aggressive militant sweeping of folks. And we are not sweeping folks right now, even though we could by this law. What I'm trying to illustrate here is, and Ms. Hanton sort of said we get to decide, and we do, and the police decide, the administration decides, and there are folks who are sleeping outside. But to me, this ordinance gives us the ability, when needed, when there's other problems, when it's maybe growing in size, when it becomes a public health, it is a public health problem, but a larger encampment can be a public health problem. It just gives us, it gives us a little bit of a tool when we need it. It's not the first tool that I've ever seen our police department pull out at any given time. I don't think if there's any other points I wanted to, my laptop died. So anyways, I support it, but when I say that, it's just to get us focused on what's important and get us spending the energy where we need. And like let's put our energy so that no one ever needs to be in this position. Nobody needs to make the choice. In the police department has the resources to send somebody somewhere, to shelters with a continuum to move folks along. If the majority of council wants to keep it as is, I think I'm okay with that. But deep in my heart, I feel like this is not a solution. Yeah, and again, I don't think it will change anything, but it just gives us one tool to prevent something from getting out of hand, from getting too large scale. I think that's all I have. So maybe if I get power back, I can make a second. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll go to Councilor Robolowski, then Councilor Coughlin.
Well, my big goal is that we have our community shelter ready, hopefully even before May 25th. I'm also on the Public Safety Committee, and I still really haven't been convinced why we have to do this now. I mean, looking at the shelter statistics, we're 15 to 20% under capacity, and they have the ability to possibly add 5 to 10 more beds. So I think once the weather starts getting worse, I think that would be a time maybe that we looked at it, but we also have to have a place for people to go because the jail isn't the place. And we did request that we get a tour of the jail and see what services they can offer to people. I know a couple of years ago, they weren't offering anything but a cot. And I've been reading that supposedly they're going to start offering other services, but it's not really the way I want to go. And I don't think this would ever be our police department's highest priority for arrests. Their number one is domestic violence. I mean, it astounded me how many calls our police department goes out to daily for that. And then the next one would probably be DUIs. You know, nobody wants drunk people driving around. I think the homeless arrests, of course, we never had this big of a problem when this was on the books before because homelessness wasn't as big of a problem even 3 years ago as it is now. And I feel that we can wait a while. And also, it's not like council can make administration or staff do anything, but I really hope you start working with the community groups that are meeting weekly to try to find a solution. I mean, that's so important that we all work together to try to find something. They haven't arrested very many people yet. There's been a few. So there is the ability to, if somebody's being disruptive, especially at Salvation Army, where they often have to ban people for a while because of disruptive behavior, which is usually caused by their mental illness or drug or alcohol dependency. So, I mean, there's just so many things in the mix, and you know, we don't have enough public defenders either. Everybody gets a public defender. So it's not like our police are planning on going out and doing mass arrests. But I also understand a lot of the neighbors' concerns where, you know, there's a high school going in at Catalyst. And do we want kids walking down MLK Junior Way because of people deciding they want to congregate on the sidewalks with tents and camping equipment and not exactly setting it up? But I wish we could figure out a day shelter, because the Salvation Army doesn't let people stay in the shelter during the day. So I'm for this, but I'm not for it right now. I think it's important that we give a chance for the process to work out. And once we see that the occupancy of the Salvation Army shelter, if that's getting really high, we're going to have to look for another place too for people. We can't just say, okay, we got our 85, everybody else get out of here. So I think it's something to watch, but at this time, I would like to hold off on passing this as is.
Thank you, Councilor Coughlin. And then Council Mochler.
Thank you, Council President. I actually just, I have some questions, I think, left over from last time, some new ones that have popped up. So I think my goal is just to ask those questions, and then if we can do a second round, I'll refrain on comments for now. Two for Attorney Finnell, and sorry I did not get these two in writing, but it came up when I was reviewing the MRSC for folks out there, Municipal Research Services Center that provides, you know, advice on city issues. And they had a nice handout with the recent Supreme Court decision. And one is that, so they said that the grants pass ordinance that the Supreme Court decision was based on had a progressive punishment system, which is what we had in place prior to updating it last year. There was a series of monetary fines that ultimately resulted in a misdemeanor. We updated it to be just a straight misdemeanor on the first offense last year. And so their recommendation was localities enacting ordinances may want to consider a similar penalty structure like we used to have. And so I don't know if, I guess, did your office get to review this and provide input and advice when this ordinance update is being crafted on kind of issues like this?
So addressing the consideration for types of punishment, I guess the other piece of that MRSC article, I don't know if you have it in front of you, says the grants pass decision did not explicitly require a progressive punishment scheme, so it wasn't addressed. And the analysis, frankly, was applicable to a variety of schemes. Many of the cities that weighed in with briefs to the court had a variety of schemes, and so the analysis at all levels for these have been treating them the same. But I did note that in the article as well. But I don't think that is determinative of whether it's illegal to pass as it is presented.
Okay, gotcha. So no significant concerns from your office on it. Okay, that helps. I guess the other one that article pointed out too was just to put it out there was that they phrase it as that this decision moves the homelessness regulation battle from a constitutional debate in City Hall over ordinance enactment to a courtroom dispute over facts of individual criminal cases. So if localities enact and prosecute these ordinances, they may see an increase in court defense is necessary. And I know we have a public defender, crisis at the moment, talked about. So I don't know, it's just something for consideration. I don't think I have a question there, but if you had anything to weigh in on, absolutely.
I can say that that was discussed at public safety. So for the council members that, are on that committee, that was discussed. Gary Hersey was there, our city prosecutor, and I think, I can't remember who had the specific question, but yes, I don't know how to say, you were correct. And we will evaluate every case, and we, like we do now. I can't say that we're going to have a blanket policy that, we're not going to prosecute these because we have a shortage or something like that. Every case that we get in a referral for, we evaluate. And so we would do the same with these referrals as well.
Okay, thank you. And shifting gears, I'm kind of curious, Mayor, this one's probably for you, and unless you're delegated to someone else, is if you've heard what other cities are doing. So I know Port Orchard and Paulsbo updated theirs last year. They have the shelter requirement on the books. I believe the county's the same, but I didn't find that, exactly. So is there movement in other cities that you've heard of, or to go the same route? And I've just, the framing is just, we've been talking about how this is a regional issue. So if there is coordination or not, I'd like to know.
To answer your question, you're comparing apples and oranges. Bremerton's issue doesn't even begin to compare to Bainbridge, Paulsbo, and Orchard. What we experience is not what they experience. So our need and our desire to change that, to prevent that from happening again, is much different than what they're looking at. And so that's the best way I know how to answer that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Tricia from Common Street. Common Street, one of the beauties of my job is that I actually get a very objective view on this because I work in multiple counties, cities, and municipalities across Washington State. I have heard correct statements from everyone tonight. What is happening in other areas? I would love to come have a field trip with me to see services. These are humans, and there is a part of what everyone has said that is valuable. We need a day shelter. Salvation Army is open during the day. They have to close to clean. It's not reasonable to expect that they can clean that much in between. So they're closed for a few hours during the day. But in one of the other counties I work in, we have multiple day shelters, day centers that are in multiple cities throughout the county. We have sanctioned encampments. Call them tent cities, call them shelters, whatever you want. They're sanctioned encampments. They serve a purpose. We have safe parking sites where people who live in vehicles have someplace safe that they can stay. We have jobs programs where it's a tiny home village that comes with employment, a step-up rent program, case management, all the supports you could want and need. This isn't about checking a box. These are humans. We're not checking a box. Having to offer services from law enforcement, that's additional work for them. They're the ones that will be calling and finding out if there's shelter space. They're the ones that are going to, if they're invested in this, it's because they want to do more than check a box. As it stands right now, you want to go to shelter? Okay, no, okay, bye. What good have we done? So the things that are working in the other areas are everything that I've heard mentioned. And Bremerton is just as beautiful a city as everywhere else, and they could probably benefit from all of those things. That's what's working in other areas. I will use Fife as an example really quick. There is no shelter in Fife.
Fair enough. No, I was looking closer to us regionally. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we don't know if the Port Orchard is probably the closest comparator, because I think Chief, you're right. By the point in time count from the county, Bremerton bears the lion's share. Absolutely. But I know Port Orchard also is probably second to us. So I don't know if they have any movement, but I wanted to ask the question because again, this is something we hopefully coordinate. Last two questions for now is, I guess, on the Salvation Army, how is it being, can you recap for us how it's being funded right now and staying open? Is that state funds? Is that them from the bill? I know it's not, we talked about getting an extra year to stay open, didn't come at zero cost.
Right. So that's just county funded, mainly county funded right now. There was a state appropriation. October moving on into the next winter, we'll be looking for more funds to keep them open until May 1st. So everybody should know it's May 1st. I know we want a 24-day difference. May 1st, they're scheduled to close. So we'll keep, we're really appreciative of our partnership with the Salvation Army stepping up. So no, we'll be looking for funding to keep them going.
Gotcha. So that funding is only, the secured funding right now is only through this fall. Okay. And then last question is, sorry, might be one more for you, Mayor. Keeping the hot seat. So part of the ordinance as it currently exists allows us to enforce it if there's shelter space in Bremerton, or if there's shelter space anywhere in Kitsap County, if transportation can be provided for someone needing that shelter. So do you have any, I know the latest update on Mile Hill facility that the county is doing in partnership with KHM in Port Orchard it's been a very delayed project, but I think the current date is October, whatever the latest on. So I don't know if you can provide an update on any efforts you've done to look at transportation coordination with the county and what might be happening with the rescue mission as they transfer that to Port Orchard.
Yeah, when the Mile Hill is completed, it's scheduled to be done this year. The Quality Inn guests and residents will transfer out to Mile Hill and fill up that shelter. There won't be available shelter at that point. And so that's part of the coordinated entry program where you go through screening, you get into a database, you go through screening and background checks before you enter. That's what's happening at Quality Inn and the other shelters. So there is no other program like the Salvation Army's coming online.
So has there been any talks of transportation if that facility had capacity, if it were to free up?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's not a drop off, right?
So we have no other low barrier shelter in the county. Okay. I think that's all my questions for now. I'll save for round two.
Councilor Mockler, Vice President Mockler, apologies.
It's fine. So here we have a few facts. One of the facts is we're not required to follow the Supreme Court's alteration. We are free, legally free, to let the ordinance remain as it is. So that's one fact. There's no legal imposition on us to change this ordinance. A second fact is because we have a singularly honest and forthright chief of police, when I asked if the ordinance as it stands prevents them from arresting people for camping on a sidewalk while shelter is available, and he said no. So under this ordinance, it is possible for the police to arrest people who are camping on a sidewalk. Or if a mental health asylum were to drop out of the sky, that would also be handy here on the Kitsap Peninsula, but I digress. So capacity at Salvation Army is not being hit. It's early August. It seems unlikely that it will be hit. We have a day shelter that is winding its way very, very slowly through the permitting process. That's just over on the other side of the Warren Avenue Bridge. At this point, there's no urgency to change this legislation, and it gives us the opportunity to remain humane and to say that here, this is the way it is. You can't camp on the sidewalk, and we will take you to a shelter. That seems very simple to me. If there were an urgency for this, if the MLK, for example, looked the way it did last summer, and there was no requirement from the Supreme Court, I could well be thinking differently, but that is actually not happening. So I think we have an opportunity here to remain compassionate. And I am opposed to altering this ordinance.
Okay, so I guess it's my turn to talk. I'm gonna speak as Councilor Chamberlain, not president, okay? I called Chief the day after he came to committee because, I just know what a good heart he has. I know that you see people struggling and dying, same with Chief McGanny, watching these people struggle and die. And, it just got into you. And, this is something that you feel will help. And there's a part of you that knows it will help, and there's some people that it could help. And I believe that. I think, as somebody who has also been in recovery, I know that some of my greatest changes, greatest improvements have come in my greatest times of pain and hardship. And so I just acknowledge that. And I just, I see you, Chief, and I told you that. I see you and I see your heart. And I know that you're not, that you have compassion. And so this is one of those situations, and I think it's other counselors and I have talked about this before, that there are certain votes that we have had to make that have just defined us, but kind of broken our hearts a little bit. But we did it because that's our job, is to be the voice of the people. We're nonpartisan. Our job is to listen to the people, to the public comment, and to weigh what you tell us you want and you need, and to be your voice. And I voted for this original ordinance against my own personal belief systems and it was hard. I got a lot of crap for it because I was seen as the bigger advocate, having struggled myself with housing insecurity. There were a lot of people that were angry at me for that. And what it came down to was that there was feedback from the Marvin Williams Center that they couldn't let their babies out and play because there was too much going on. And I had, and that was compelling for me. What I wasn't prepared for was the legal interpretation. I thought that enacting this ordinance would provide multiple options for housing solutions. And it did not. The legal interpretation was that if there was one option available, that was the one option. I really thought that our ordinance was going to assist administration in creating something like a safe parked lot, other options, just as Trish is mentioning from Common Streets. It did not. It gave us the bare minimum, which is our one low barrier shelter, as the option to use. I don't see the urgency either. I don't understand why we need to do this now. And with the deepest respect that I have for administration, I'm just baffled why this has to happen now. And I'm disappointed that this is coming to us at this time. And I think that what's really underneath it all is that there's possibly a lack of trust in our community partners to deliver on what we've asked. And I'm still, we still have quite a few months to see that solution enacted, to see that solution come to fruition. That'll still leave us with just one low barrier shelter, to my understanding, which is not enough. We need more creative solutions. Option 3 that Councilor Younger came up with, I really liked, but I digress myself. I really liked it. It allowed a lot of different options, but that's not what we decided. So here we are. I don't see any need to rush this myself. I'm going to go ahead and stop with my comments and let it go to a second round. If y'all have anything else to say, Councilor Younger, go right ahead.
Thank you. So I'm listening to everybody closely and have some comments. Councilmember Coughlin, you asked if any other city has passed a similar ordinance.
City of Lakewood was the first one in the state of Washington, as you know. Lakewood is a military community similar in size to the city of Bremerton. They passed it shortly after the Supreme Court issued its decision in July. It was a close vote, 3-2 for removal. Councilmember Mockler, you must remember last summer when the proposed shelter ended up being in District 6, all the people that came down here and said, please don't do this. So now potentially we're opening up to this happening all over again. And you're okay with that. No, I'll let you answer when it's kind of a rhetorical question.
Probably better to just address generically.
Right. I just find the irony in that. I brought up in my original comments effective risk management. And so I hear council members saying, what's the emergency? To me, this is akin to not waiting to buy car insurance until after the car accident. You can have a crisis at any given point in time where the shelters fill up. I'll give you an example. Last year, the All-Star game was held in Seattle. Do you know what happened in Seattle weeks before the All-Star game? I know. My office is right across the street from what was called Safeco Field, now called T-Mobile Park. They cleared the campsites out. Do you know where a lot of them went? I bet our police force could tell us. Captain Wolf, would you like to speak up to that?
Chief Wolf.
Chief Wolf, and by the way, I don't know what his answer is going to be. I saw him nodding the head, but I know what the answer is. We'll see if they agree.
It's Tom. Council, y'all grew up with the parables, the grasshopper and the ant, right? And the ants work their butt off all summer long, and grasshopper plays all summer long. And then the fall comes along, and the grasshopper has saved nothing for the winter when it hits. And the ant's been prepared. He's been preparing. And now the winter hits, and the grasshopper's out in the wind. That's where my mindset is we are a busload. We are a fire. We are anything. And I know Councilperson Fry doesn't like fear, but the reality is exactly that. We are an event in Seattle that pushes a whole bunch of people here. We are 2 busloads of people showing up from wherever else, from overloading what we have. And overnight, before council can act, before you can have 2 meetings and a vote and change the ordinance, we will have a tent city down here again. And that's what I'm afraid of. That's what I don't want to have happen. And we can take the time right now and have this discussion. We can prepare. And if, again, predictable is preventable. I can predict what's going to happen if we don't have a shelter. Look at your packets. Look at those pictures. That happens again. Those are real people that died in those tents from fentanyl overdoses because there was no accountability. They were allowed to do whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted, with no accountability. There was nothing we could do about it. This gives us ability to hold people accountable and push them towards services. We have Common Street. We never had that in the past. We have community partners that if this doesn't, really drive them, yeah, we need that shelter. We need multiple shelters. Yes, we need behavioral health. We need all of that. But if we don't take action and we get caught flat-footed, is that something you're willing to look in the mirror and deal with? Because that's exactly what I'm presenting to you, is don't let it happen again. And here's the preventive method to it. I'm sure we could do shelter, sure we could do all these things, but until we have that ability, this prevents that from happening again. And I think we owe it to our citizens that already bore that burden. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. You answered my question and then some, and better than I could in the points I was going to make. So I'll just wrap it up by saying, and I appreciate
we are nonpartisan on this council, but there are members of the council or a member of the public that don't like the direction of the U.S. Supreme Court in its decisions lately. However, I will state again that what the Supreme Court decision did provide us in this instance is give back local control to local cities on how to address the homeless issue without passing this ordinance tonight. In a time of crisis, we will not have local control over our problem. Thank you.
Councilor Fry.
You know, I too reacted by asking why, what's the rush? You know, I didn't understand that. I think I better do now. I better understand it now. I believe that it's a pendulum swing. You know how I have these analogies like trust the process and all that. Well, I do think that a lot of life is like a pendulum, and if it swings too far one way, it needs to swing back the other way and come back into alignment, and or correction or whatever. And there are many people that feel that the Blake case was a pendulum that went way too far, the Ninth Circuit decision. And therefore, when a correction takes place like that, there are going to be people, and I respect those people, that sigh relief, right? Because their perspective on it. I don't think, I'm going to go out on a limb here, I don't think this council needs the shelter requirement in the ordinance to make sure that there's adequate shelter for our citizens. I really don't. I think it was handy, you know, it was a way to engage, and we really figured some stuff out, and I think it was really productive. And it also gave over $1 million to Bremerton Housing Authority to establish what we feel is the most compassionate model out there. So I guess I sit on public safety, so I got more of an opportunity to discuss it. And I think some of our council members haven't had that. I do think that if it had been brought into public safety first and then taken into study session, it might have gone a little bit easier, but maybe not, because I do think that we have a lot of conviction up here. And we see this in from seven different perspectives. And I trust everybody up here individually and collectively. So I know I'm going to calm down and trust the process.
Councilor Coughlin, would you like to take your second round? Do you have anything?
No, sounds good. So I do want to make a clarification, because I think it was muddied a bit earlier, right? Yes, we have a homelessness crisis, and part of that involves tents, and part of it involves people without tents, right? My district includes MLK. I've been seeing it the past 10 years. I go by almost every day. We've had an enforceable ordinance for almost a year now. There is still people in crisis down there, right? There are still effects. There are people suffering, and there are still homeowners impacted. So I do want to make it real clear that just updating the shelter requirements of this ordinance doesn't fix all that, doesn't make it go away. And so I want to set those expectations, because I think some of the data, the way it was presented, came across initially, and that's what gave me pause. It came across initially of look last year, look this year. Oh, if we pass this, maybe we'll go back to normal. So I don't think, I just want to make people, the public, that's not the case. The argument that is, convincing is this is a preventative measure. If that shelter does fill up, I fully appreciate that. And yeah, capacity 80, they can stretch to 90 at Salvation Army. Right now, the numbers I looked at in the packet, they're averaging around 60. So I agree with other members that it's not urgent this week or next week, but it could be urgent next month or the following month. So that So I do appreciate this being brought forth, because last year, start of the year, this council, I don't think was briefed that Salvation Army was closing down that year, that we might have a crisis coming. I'm not sure if it was just nobody saw it coming or there was not communication. But yeah, all of a sudden March and April came and there was a crisis on that street. And we had to, struggle on our own to put a lot of options on the table, get a lot of public feedback, and try and find a path forward that we could live with and that wasn't in our moral bounds, and trying to find the best path. And that was messy, but we got there. So I actually really appreciate this being brought forth now in a coherent fashion so that we can discuss it. But I struggled that the moral obligation that we have as government, local, state, regional, I say it is, yes, health and safety, but it is also to provide low barrier shelter and those services that people need, and rehabilitation and mental health treatment that is lacking. And I've said it before that Bremerton should take the lead. We should have that moral imperative, but we can't do it alone. We are one of the poorest per capita cities. And so I go back to the shelter options and to kind of respond to some of the other comments. We did have to choose a path. We had money to allocate and we couldn't split it to be effective, right? I feel strongly we needed to choose a path as a council of where we were going to put that city money. Now that did not prevent administration from using public works money to start working on the parcel, right? I think it would have been a mistake given the pushback from the citizens in that area. I do not see that going forward in a timely manner, but it didn't prevent administration going out for more money and pursuing another project. What we said is we directed, if you're allocating over $1 million of city funds, this is going to the nonprofit partners, and this is the path we want to see. So I do worry about that money. It's in our resolution, it's in council's authority. We set that forward. So I just want to say clearly now that money, I will not vote as long as I'm that council to change that money. That money is for the low barrier shelter that we desperately need. But I appreciate the only thing I'm struggling with is that, as it was articulated, by keeping this requirement, right? It's an incentive for us as a city and whoever's in these seats or in administration seats to keep working towards doing our part and our fair share to provide shelter. So if we remove it, it's a good question. What remains? Folks in council, administration, Mayor, I'm just going to put you on the spot here and say, it was mentioned not attending meetings with the nonprofit partners. If we pass this, would you promise to start attending those meetings and continue to work with them and fight for more funding for that shelter solution?
You're going to put me on the spot again?
Again.
Well, the last time I was put on the spot, I brought you forward a shelter proposal. So you had the option. You did have option A. October would have been the groundbreak. So we will continue to support fundraising. I've written letters of support. We expedited a zoning change through the Planning Commission. We put that as the highest priority over everything else we do. We will continue as an administration, who's the authority on projects, to do what we do, which is stand ready. So no, I won't be attending those meetings. We are the approval authority for the projects that are going to come forward. What we can do is work as a very good partner when those projects are submitted, and we can do that. And we can also do, within my swim lane, I can write letters of support when those come forward. And I can also work with the Salvation Army to buy you time, so you're not making this decision today with people on our street. When I've been successful doing that with the Salvation Army first, and then getting funding to keep them open. So you have time, at least today, as the chief said, you want to get ahead of problems that haven't happened yet, but are coming. So without a shelter with the current ordinance, that will be a problem. So that's why we're bringing this forward now. So, we stand ready.
may do a quick short third round, but I want to hear from the others who haven't spoken yet.
Gerdulowski. Counselor Gerdulowski.
I go by anything. So if I understand this correctly, we pass this ordinance because there's some big event in Seattle and they bus everybody over here. Are we gonna arrest everybody? I mean, we can't do that. I mean, well, we could, but the jail isn't gonna take them. You don't have the manpower to arrest everybody. So it just seems like, and I get having the carrot and the stick. I totally understand that. But it seems like right now we could be punishing the people who are breaking the ordinance by not going to a shelter. And we're not doing that. So, and I'm not proposing that you go and arrest everybody who's hanging out on MLK every day. But I just, it feels like we're given a message to our community partners and it's not a good message. And I want to give them a positive message and try to help and support them in any way that council can. And maybe if the mayor chooses not to attend their meetings, maybe it's somebody else in the staff if they're allowed to attend. But I mean, we're all in this together, especially, you know, the folks that live in the city and or work in the city. I mean, everybody's affected by it. But it seems, and Chief, I know you're not a vindictive person, but this feels wrong, doing it right at this minute. If we're in late September, early October, where we're getting closer and we're worried about reaching a limit at the shelter, then yes, if that will help discourage people from not moving here from another place. But my understanding from the surveys that were done, the majority of the people who are unsheltered are from here or they've been from here for at least a year or two. And maybe I'm interpreting the information incorrectly, but I don't see that everybody's rushing to Bremerton because it's a cool place to be unsheltered. But maybe it is. And I don't know how I'm going to vote until Ms. Hoover calls my name.
Counselor Goodnow and then Vice President Mockler.
You know, when did we vote on this? Does anybody know off their head?
September.
So, but we voted on this because of the pressure that was put on us from the 9th District. And we took a lot of time to do that, but we basically came up with this because we had to have something. And this was sort of the best we could come up with to maintain some law and order and be as compassionate as possible. But it was really about putting something in writing, because it hasn't changed like our values as a city or the values that we see from the folks that are enforcing this. And so I don't feel like a crazy urgency like to change this, but I kind of feel like, you know, we've talked about it, we've heard so much, and this is by far one of the most compassionate councils you could run across. So we definitely hear all these things and take them to heart, but I kind of feel like, I don't want to see it's the urgency, but something changed, data changed, and right, and we say that all the time. We want all the data, we want the input, something changed that really completely changes why we have the discussion back in the fall to begin with. And so I looked at this as like, oh yeah, let's just fix that, because the pressure that we were under was nobody came to us, you know, to say that we had to change that law. We were forced to by the courts, right? And so we made that change, and now it's like, oh, let's go back. Let's make sure that the folks who are enforcing it, most of this stuff, I'll look for a head nod, but we're looking at probably complaint-based enforcement anyways. Somebody's probably going to call in and say, there's, you know, a growing encampment by my home or things like that. But it just gives us some you know, authority. People like Bremerton, people like these places, these communities that we live in, because of what we built over the years and how we try to do this. I don't think that rolling this back is going to make a difference. I don't think we're going to start treating folks inhumanely, but I think that it gives us some safety net for preventing large encampments. And I want to go back and say, I don't want to spend time on this. I don't want to spend months on this. I don't want to spend time down the road on this. I want us to focus on the real things that will keep people from ever having to think a tent on the street is the best solution they have. So,
Vice President Mockler.
Let's vote.
So we have a pause. Well, I think you've had a second round, right? So
You said third round, though.
I haven't spoken.
That's fine.
Yeah, so let me go ahead and say a couple things. So I had somebody, were you calling for a vote on it? Because what Vice President Mockler, because I was gonna take a temperature check and see if we wanted to vote on this now, or if council wanted to put it back into committee and keep it on. Okay, so there's a call for the vote. Okay, so I'm gonna honor that. I'm gonna call for the vote.
Point of order. I want Robert's rules here. You can't just do that. That would just blow up the whole political system. So I'd like our parliamentarian to explain the procedure, please.
Thank you.
So if you call the question, then we would need to vote on call the question on whether or not everybody is ready.
Thank you. So call for the question. So are we not ready then?
Is there a second?
Second.
We'll mock the. Yeah.
A second. I second.
Okay. So we'll vote.
Okay.
Councilmember Goodnow.
so we're voting on
Calling.
Calling the
Yes.
question. Call the question.
We're voting to
call the question.
Correct.
Voting to call the question.
There was a motion to call the
Yes.
question. Mockler,
Yes.
Younger,
No.
Fry,
Yes.
Coughlin,
No.
Revelowski.
Can you provide clarification for
Yeah.
Councilor Revelowski, please?
I still don't know what we're voting on. Whether we should vote, we're voting on whether we should vote?
Correct.
No.
Chamberlain.
Yes.
Motion carries 4 yeses, 3 no.
Point of order on call the question, just to check, I think it's 2/3 in my head, but I'm checking.
Oh, I'm sorry. You
Is
are
the
correct.
majority?
Sorry. Yes.
Okay.
So motion
Majority.
fails.
Okay, motion fails. All right, so. Then let me make some comments here. So that motion failed. I think for me, we honestly don't know what leadership we're going to have in 2 years. We don't know if we're going to have a completely flipped style of leadership. We don't know if we're going to have a different police chief in 2 years. We don't know if we'll have different counselors. We don't. And I think, I mean, we don't know. We don't know what the leadership is going to look like. People move, all kinds of life situations happen. I feel like keeping this ordinance as it is, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with the ordinance as it's written. Ensures that we are keeping a level of compassion in place for a little bit longer. That's all I have to say right now. So we're in a third round. Councilor Younger.
Okay, so I'll be brief. Picture a stool, three-legged stool. On one leg, we have our police department, who is tasked with enforcing our ordinance. And they're asking us for local control so they can make these decisions as the feet on the ground. The other leg on our stool is Common Street, our nonprofit outreach organization, which serves as the helping hand to our houseless folks that are in our streets that have the subject matter expert and can serve as a liaison between the police and those services that houseless need. The third leg of our stools are nonprofit partners who we are relying on to help us with our shelter needs as decided by the council last year. I think a couple council members, or at least one, I'm reaching out to, perhaps two, suggested that they want to show support for our nonprofit partners. I don't see why you cannot vote for this. Support our police department, support giving the city of Bremerton local control, and why the council cannot appoint someone on this council to attend those meetings and be the representative of the city of Bremerton in the weekly meetings. And because we definitely have a vested interest and we would like to know what's going on, and that should suffice. If we build this stool, if we support this stool with all three legs, we'll be in a much better position in addressing what's coming down the road. Thank you.
Councilor Fry.
I really took Eric Younger's comments 2 weeks ago to heart. We saw each other by the elevator, and I could tell he was, feeling it himself. And I want to give, when we have our police chief, or when we have the director of community development or public works up, and they're asking for something in order to be more effective in their job and to create greater impact in our community. I want really badly to give that to them. And it's only a few things that caused me pause this time. And it was mostly process. It was mostly respect for the process, of discussion, of engagement. None of us want to go back to last summer. I don't want to go back to rehashing all of this all over again because the data hasn't really changed. Homelessness is still out there and we haven't figured out how to deal with it. So I have gotten to a point, and I guess I'm not frustrated. I've just gotten to a point of clarity where I've been able to separate that out. And I've been able to admit this ordinance isn't playing a role really in whether, Jill Stanton over there with Bremerton Housing Authority is moving on the shelter. It's they do it for a much different reason. And so I want to kind of take that out. And I don't see a lot of people arguing against this from our community partners. You know, I think we had a board member, talk about it, but I don't know where they stand with it, specifically. I think we do have a balance of compassion and accountability. People have to be accountable. The only other one thing I want to say is you're digging your ditch when you start getting into resentment over that council vote last year. You turn me off right away. Your resentment, the administration's resentment of that decision is tainting our meetings. I don't want to hear it anymore. I want this council strong enough to say, that's not part of this discussion. The council has spoken. Move forward with it. And if you need a volunteer to attend those meetings, I love those people. I would hang with them anytime, and I would do it from anywhere I was. So that's it for me.
Third round, Councilor Coughlin.
Thank you, Council President. The reason I was reserving a third round was to possibly put on the table a motion to postpone this. But I am personally struggling to find a reason to. And the reason being, is there anything in this specific ordinance that we could do to tie it to ensure everybody plays nice, to ensure, everyone keeps doing their part? I'm struggling to think of anything. If anybody can think of anything. Yes, the shelter requirement, right? We keep the shelter requirement, and we have what happened last year pop up again. There's going to be more urgency on behalf of the entire city to get shelter created. Absolutely. However, the chaos and the harm that causes in the meantime, I don't, it's so difficult, but I don't want that to necessarily be the reason. I'll be honest, I have the right as a council member to question any individual should they wish. Actually, and Ms. Hanton, can I call on you to, and you don't have to answer at all. It's just, it's a right. If you have any suggestion on anything that could be put in this ordinance to keep pressure that we do the right thing, or is it just, because we'll just go back to your public comment, or is it just the need to create shelter space to enforce it? That's the main forcing tool. Yes, please.
I appreciate. No, I don't disagree with what Chief Wolf is saying. My concern is that without a requirement for shelter, what is our impetus? We're talking about the county coming to meetings every week. Those people have full-time jobs. Our nonprofits, they're coming to meetings every week. Those people have full-time agencies. What is the glue that is holding together the movement? And I know the mayor says he stands ready to do things, but he also said he won't participate. He's not participating. His endorsement letter was lukewarm at best. Without that, the glue that holds this together is people's desire to meet that deadline. Deadlines are important. Without that, it's easy to skip a meeting. The county's got stuff to do. The nonprofit people have stuff to do. We want a shelter. I appreciate common streets. They can't solve the homeless problem. The police can't be in a position to keep chasing these people all around. They've got to have someplace to go. So for us to really meet the deadline, to keep the grants coming, we have to say when this is going to happen. To press people to partner with us, we have to say when this is going to happen. Time is of the essence. It's too easy to let it go. So my interest in having us keep this in the ordinance is keep us all on the same page, keep us accountable to that May deadline when we know we will not have shelter, so we keep moving. Can we do that collectively without the deadline? Maybe, sure. We have good intentions, but hope is not a plan. A deadline really forms a plan. That's my interest. Thank you.
Thank you very much for clarifying it. I'm not going to make a motion to postpone at this time.
Okay. Counselor Walowski?
I really appreciate Eric's suggestion. I think it's a great one. That if administration and staff don't want to participate in weekly meetings, then somebody from council will go every week and will be there. I understand Ms. Hampton's point about leaving the shelter requirement in so that it's a deadline that everybody can work with. I think with Eric's solution or proposal that we can make that work by even removing this. If the police department feels they need the ordinance changed, I can go along with that. Only because I know there's so many other things and people to arrest first. So anyway, thank you, Eric, for your points. I appreciate it.
I call the question. Am I allowed to do that as president, or does somebody else need to do that? I just did that. Is there a second?
If there's no more input.
Well, I just did that. Let's just call the question.
So you want to vote on call the question again?
I want to.
You're ready to vote.
I'm ready to call the question. Ready to vote. Thank you.
Councilmember Revelowski.
Yes.
Good now.
Yes.
Mockler.
No.
Younger.
Yes.
Fry.
Yes.
Coughlin.
Yes.
Chamberlain.
No.
Motion carries. 5 yeses, 2 nos.
Okay. Thank you, colleagues. Next up is council reports. So this is an opportunity for council members to provide an update on any issues or events taking place in their district, announce any events that have recently attended or plan to attend, or to speak on any other city-related topic. First meeting of the month, Councilor Fry for District 2.
Yeah, I've got some
You're up.
slides. Could we get those up there? I'm just going to keep the hospital up there. It's the most recognizable thing, you know. As soon as we have something else up there, I'll include that. The big news, of course, was the opening of Heathen's Bakery by our own President Jennifer Chamberlain. If you didn't see the write-up in the Kitsap Sun, front page, top of the fold. I'm an old newspaper person, so top of the fold is a big deal. Great pictures. In my district, it's going to be a new meeting place for me with colleagues and friends. So thank you, President Chamberlain, for opening up Heathens. And go on to the next slide. This is my favorite picture. This is Logan, her son. And I know Logan, it's really been a family affair of love. Small business owners, you got to love them. This woman works hard. Thank you. Next slide. These are the hours, 10 to 6. And the only time I can do that is when she's got a new business. So 10 to 6, basically, what is it? Thursday through Sunday through Monday. Yeah. Claire and Lebo, everybody. Okay, next slide.
Point of order, can we see what's on the menu? What's on the bakery?
Yeah.
You'll have to come in for that.
Well, boy, did I mentioned pendulums earlier. I really believe in this stuff. I really do. And when something gets over to an extreme, it tends to want to come over. The guy next to me is the, physicist. So he knows all about this. I just kind of live with it. So, yeah. I like being in the middle, if you haven't noticed. Next slide. Yeah, this is what I want to hone in on. There was a lack of respect for process shown with the situation with the camping ordinance. And I'm going to try not to react to that so badly as I did last study session. I'm going to try to keep calm and respect the process. And notice I changed that. It's no longer trust the process. You know why? Because you have to have respect first if you're going to trust. So let's start trusting the process and maybe we'll feel like better about it. I think that's it for me. That's enough. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up, District 3, Councilor Coughlin.
Thank you. No slides tonight, but I think I'll just say ditto to Councilmember Fry. We have a process for items like these, and this did not feel very smooth. I'll be honest. It was not a smooth presentation, and what I think could have strengthened it is a recap of everything we're doing as a city to do our part. And we're seeing it, right? There's kinks to be worked out in our relationship still. And I don't know how we get there. But I love the suggestion of one of us attending the meetings and maybe council just taking a more active day-to-day role. Could be some quorum of us, just a more active day-to-day role in establishing partnerships across the county. And so all I can say is I hope is that was a very difficult vote. But for anyone listening, hold the city accountable, hold us accountable, hold whoever's in these seats, the mayor seats or administration accountable by showing up. And if we're not doing our part as a city, if we're slacking off, if folks are not working regionally and cooperatively, and if we're not putting our money where our mouth is with the resources that we have, although it's not always a lot, hold us accountable and come and speak up. And that's what we're going to need going forward. Moving on, as far as my district, yeah, we still have those same issues that are downtown. We had Ms. Fridas here last week talking about folks urinating on her fence in her house. Sure would be nice if folks didn't have to be on her fence and we had some other solution downtown. We've hashed that one to death. But going towards happier news, I do also just want to thank you, Mayor, directly for bringing forth, for being here. I want to thank police and staff for being here. I want to thank Ms. Stanton and Ms. Hanton and everybody who spoke up. The last thing, I guess, district-wise is Quincy Square. Also a thank you to Katie Ketterer and Public Works working hard on that, providing an update. Likely to be postponed a little farther in the year, though I think overall less impacts to the businesses and really good communication from Public Works to the business owners on that. So just a shout out to her and the hard work she's had on that project, and looking forward to that continuing to come to fruition. So I think I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, District 4, Jane Robolowski.
Hi, I should have some slides, please. So, when I was running for council, I met some great people who are bike advocates. And I have a bike and I'm a terrible bike rider. I've crashed numerous times. So they're trying to teach me how to be a better bike rider. And we went on a weekend of bike riding. This is us on the Elwha River Dam Bridge, not dam, the Elwha River Bridge. And it's incredible. You see up above, that's where the cars go. And on this bridge, it's just for pedestrians and bike riders. And we did a round trip of 25 miles on the Olympic Discovery Trail. If you haven't been there, go. There's all these different segments you can ride. And the great part, it just opens your eyes to what we could do here in Bremerton and this part of the county, because we're not really bike friendly at all. Hopefully we're getting there. But I'll go to my next slide, please. Oh, God. There's so many of these. Cars parked in the bike lane on Washington Avenue. There's several members of council who are working with our legal staff to try to come up with a real solution for this. Next slide, please. Oh, there's somebody parked there too. What do we got for the next one? Oh, they're getting close to that fire hydrant. Okay, next slide. I'm not having a district meeting this month. It's too hot. Nobody wants to go to district meetings in the summer. But my next one will be right after Labor Day on September 5th. I don't know who my guest speaker is going to be yet. If you have any suggestions, and maybe we could invite some folks, our partners who are working on our shelter. Maybe they're ready to give an update. But if not, we'll find somebody interesting to come talk with us. So that's pretty much it for District 4. I'll get back to you in a couple weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. District 5, Councilor Goodnow.
My microphone's been on this whole time. Okay, not a whole lot. Just want to remind folks that next Saturday, the 17th, is the Forest Ridge Park cleanup. They meet at 9 in the morning, and they just kind of steward the park. I call it a cleanup, but it's all kinds of different things. Sometimes it's attacking ivy and or just cutting back some things or whatever. And it's a good group, and it's a good chance to meet some local neighbors. There is a Facebook page for Forest Ridge Park that you can tap into to get information. I have that super handy. I don't. And then I just wanted to mention that on Tuesday, August 20th is the Charleston Business District meeting, and that'll be 6 p.m. at Unique Expression Custom Embroidery on Callow, right by where the city just put in a brand new, much safer crosswalk. So we're pretty excited about that. And their planters are looking amazing. So it was great to repurpose some of those for the Charleston district. And I will give up my time.
Thank you. Next up, Vice President Mockler. Yes, please. I understand there's a video attached to your report.
The very first thing I need to stand up for. Today, Lulu Haddon Park began construction. Lori Oski, Sandy. First slide, please. So, District 6, the August town hall is canceled. We have the magnificent finance director, Mike Riley, coming on 9/9 to make the budget process more accessible to people so that their comments and participation will carry more weight, because it's a whole language budget. Next slide, please. Video. Thank you for muting it. I appreciate that. It is a beaver. It is a beaver swimming. I was hoping it would be a larger beaver swimming, but this is the beaver otter wetland behind Pendergast Park that I have been attempting to protect for as long as I've been trying to get Lulu Haddon Park fixed. Isn't it? Oh, thank you for making a bigger, better beaver. So we'll just have this as a GIF. Oh, this is like art now. So I have been talking to this council at regular intervals about changing our wetland regulations to better protect our wetlands. This will be really short, I promise. Chapter 20.14.360 of Wetland Report of our Bremerton Municipal Code says that a wetland report has to be prepared by a qualified professional. A critical area report for wetlands, you can put the beaver back, shall be prepared by a qualified professional who is certified professional wetland scientist or a non-certified professional wetland scientist. So this is, here's my analogy. I've stopped talking about wetlands. Come on in. When you buy a house, you want to have that house inspected, right? You want to hire the person who inspects it. You do not want the seller to choose an inspection and tell you that you should accept the seller's inspector, and moreover, that seller's inspector can be either certified or non-certified. So this is why I would like at some future point to bring this up again, because we've had a recent wetland report, recent-ish, earlier this year, on an area directly next to the beautiful beaver wetland that was done by a company whose motto is optimize usable land. I think that that is a very normal political position. I really do. It's completely normal. It is not, however, the slogan that I want to hear from a scientist, any more than you would want your home inspector to have a company slogan that was increase revenues. So that is why I would like to bring this up at some future point. And I'm done talking about wetlands. Yay! I would like to give a shout out to Joe Keller, who made clear and made public and a situation that was happening near Lulu Haddon Park. And one of the things that is going to happen, according to Public Works Director Tom Nucky in 25 or possibly 26, is there will be a sidewalk along 15th Street. If you have walked that between Corbett and Lafayette, you know that's pretty scary. He sent some photographs of a woman trying to push a stroller through there. And it's a blind curve and a steep hill, and I'm so happy about this whole situation. Not only will there be sidewalks on the quiet residential street Lafayette, almost done, there will also be the sidewalks where they're really needed on 15th. So thank you, Joe Keller. Thank you, Public Works. Thank you, Council. No more beavers.
District 7, Counselor Younger.
Do we need to set a timer?
Yes, I'm setting it right now. Beep.
So I'm going to say thank you, but I want to say thanks to the City Council. I'll explain why I'm saying thanks. Before I left to come down here from my house, I told my wife, oh boy, I'm not looking forward to tonight. And that's because based on the study session 2 weeks ago, I was feeling pretty lonely on my position on what we just voted on. The reason why I'm saying thank you is I appreciate while we have our own opinion and things evolved over 2 weeks. I watched and I listened. I mean, I was looking at everyone that was speaking and I took notes and I listened, and I appreciate you all listened, and some of you waited all the way to the end before you voted. And I've been on many councils over the years, and I'm just saying I'm grateful for you guys because you took it all in and you listened to each other, and then you made your decision. I wasn't expecting this to pass. I definitely wasn't expecting it to go 7-0. And even if it didn't pass, you're all listening and taking each other's comments in, and I just want to say thanks. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Do I have a slide? I should have one slide. Let's see. Okay. We have the next Warren Avenue Bridge cleanup on Saturday, August 17th. Meet at Cafe Perfetto around 8:30. Get yourself a t-shirt, a donut, a cup of coffee, and some materials provided by the county, which include a grabber, some gloves, maybe a bucket or a bag. Man, these folks, they're pretty amazing. They go around, they just take an hour, they clean up my whole area, my whole neighborhood practically. And it's a really great group. You should stop by and be a part of. That's all the slides that I have. And just coming from just a vulnerable perspective, I'm feeling extremely lonely right now on this council. This is a huge change we made with some very deep impacts to our society. And I won't apologize for being emotional about it. If you know me or if you've seen me here, you know that I can cry at the drop of a hat when it comes to something that's really touching. And I'm just really sad. I'm just really sad, and that's just coming from a personal perspective. That's all. Let me finish reading the script because I think we're all ready to go home and get out of here. Next study session will be held in the 6th floor council conference room next Wednesday, August 14th, beginning at 5 p.m. with remote option available by Zoom. This concludes tonight's regular council